HOA burned my ranch in a feud. They had no idea I control the region's land grants. Have you ever watched someone destroy everything you built only to realize they had just lit the match to their own future? The first time I met Linda Perriman, I thought she was just another nosy board member. Turns out, she was the HOA president of Sycamore Ridge, the newly expanded subdivision bordering my family ranch. Her smile was tight, her tone sharp, and she had a folder full of compliance concerns the moment she stepped on my property. "I'm here on behalf of the HOA," she said, eyeing my hand-built fence like it was barbed wire. "Some of your ranch structures violate the community's aesthetic guidelines." I blinked. "Lady, this ranch has been here for 130 years. Yes, but Sycamore Ridge is growing fast. We're trying to ensure a consistent visual experience." "You bought land next to a working ranch," I said. "Not a golf course." "Well," she snapped, "perhaps the ranch should adapt." I thought that was the end of it, just a tone-deaf neighbor with a bit too much time. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. Within 2 weeks, I started getting official violation letters. Complaints about livestock odor, noise from late-night calving, even unapproved fencing paint color. All of it ridiculous. All of it signed by Linda. I invited her to sit down, to talk, to understand what the ranch did for the region, the beef, the produce, the school agriculture programs. She refused. "You'll either comply," she said, "or we'll escalate." And they did. She rallied the board to file nuisance complaints with the county, pressured local shops not to buy from us, blocked access roads that ran through HOA easements. And worst of all, she sent drone footage of my cattle pens to some environmental watchdog group, manipulating the angles to make it look like we were polluting a creek. We weren't, but it took time and lawyers to prove it. By then, the damage was done. Buyers pulled out. My monthly revenue tanked. I had to sell off part of my herd just to cover legal fees. But the final straw came one dry, windy morning in July. I was out in the east field when I smelled smoke. By the time I got over the ridge, I saw it. Flames crawling up the back slope of my property, smoke billowing, fence lines catching. At the base of it, Linda, standing beside 2 other HOA board members. A red gas can sat near her feet, and she held a flare stick still burning at the tip. They froze when they saw me. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. Linda tried to smile. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It was just a controlled burn to clear excess brush near the property line. Your fence was already in violation. We were just helping. You lit a fire on my land in a red flag wind advisory. It was necessary," she said, arms crossed. "Maybe now the board will see how unsafe your old infrastructure really is." I took photos, called the fire department. Luckily, the local volunteer unit responded fast, and the blaze was contained within a few acres. But the damage was real, and so was my fury. Here's what Linda didn't know. The land Sycamore Ridge sat on used to be part of my family's original homestead. Decades ago, my grandfather signed an agreement with the county, donating portions to developers on the condition that any use of land, including HOA governance, had to comply with the region's agricultural integrity clause. It was buried in the original land grant contracts. No one reads those, except me. After the fire, I dusted off the old legal box in the barn. Inside was everything I needed. Signatures, maps, a notarized clause that could invalidate any governing entity that infringed on ranching operations or committed willful destruction of AG-designated land. I took it straight to my lawyer. And then we went to the county commissioner. Within 3 weeks, the HOA's charter was under review. And while Linda smirked at the next board meeting, thinking she'd gotten away with arson, she didn't notice the county assessor quietly walking the room with a manila folder in hand. "You're being served," he said, placing the documents in front of her. "What is this?" she asked. "Termination of HOA jurisdiction. Investigation into criminal trespass and arson. Oh, and a lawsuit." Her face drained of color. I spoke up then, clear and calm. "You tried to destroy my land," I said. "But the deed that built this place also binds yours. You stepped across the line, and now, You're going to burn in a way you never expected. She tried to argue, claimed it was a setup, that I had started the fire. But the drone footage she loved so much, this time it worked against her. One of my neighbors had a drone in the air that morning, capturing the whole scene, flare and all. What would you do if someone tried to erase your legacy in the name of community progress? Can justice ever truly make up for betrayal and loss? Or is exposure the only real revenge? Linda didn't show up to the emergency HOA board meeting 3 days later. But the room was packed. Neighbors who had once praised her landscaping campaigns and admired her firm leadership now sat in stiff, angry silence. The county investigator took the floor. We have sufficient evidence to confirm that on July 9th, Ms. Perriman and 2 other board members initiated an unauthorized controlled burn, resulting in damage to privately owned ranch land. This action violated county fire code, the region's agricultural protection statute, and federal conservation terms tied to the land's historical designation. You could hear the oxygen leave the room. Then he dropped the second bomb. Furthermore, due to the discovery of the 1964 Conditional Land Use Grant, all HOA activities, rulings, and fines affecting the historic ranch are legally void. And since multiple homeowners received citations based on the same overreach, the HOA's charter is now being officially suspended, pending dissolution review. In other words, she'd killed the HOA with one gas can. Some clapped. Others looked stunned, like realizing the chains around their neighborhood had just fallen off. But I wasn't done. Later that week, I filed a personal civil suit. Destruction of property, economic sabotage, trespass, defamation. It was more than just vengeance. I wanted every dollar lost to be counted. Every sleepless night. Every animal I had to sell. Every lie that poisoned my community. And the court agreed. Thanks to video evidence, archived emails, and her very public statements on social media where she boasted about cleansing the ranchscape, Linda Perriman was found fully liable. She lost her house to the settlement. Her landscape design business was blacklisted. The 2 HOA board members who stood by her during the fire were fined and placed under investigation for misuse of HOA funds. And as word of the scandal spread, other towns looked harder at their own HOAs. People started asking, who's really protecting our homes? And who's just protecting their power? But here's the twist I never saw coming. A month after the verdict, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a short note. You don't know me, but I'm Linda's daughter. I just wanted to say thank you for standing up to her. She destroyed more than land. She broke our family, too. You gave people the truth. And maybe now we can breathe again. There was no signature. Just a small photo clipped to the corner, 2 kids sitting on the hood of a truck with Sycamore Ridge behind them, laughing. Free. It hit me harder than any court victory. Because what Linda never understood was this. Power doesn't come from rules. It comes from responsibility. From protecting what matters. She tried to break me, but instead, she revealed what was already broken herself, and in the system she weaponized. And in fighting her, I didn't just save my land. I helped others find their ground, too. Now the ranch is thriving again. The soil is still scarred in places, but that's the way of fire. It clears what's dying so new things can grow. The students are back. Our beef goes to 4 counties now. The town held its first open ranch festival, and more than 800 people showed up. City folk, country folk, all of them walking the land she tried to burn. And guess what? I added a new sign to the rebuilt fence, just above the blackened post where the fire began. It reads, "This land stands because we stood." People take pictures with it, tag it online. It's become a symbol not of resistance, but of recovery, of community earned, not controlled. Have you ever faced someone who tried to bury your roots to plant their own version of perfection? What did you do when power turned to poison? Share your story and let's remind the world that justice doesn't burn. It builds. 6 months after the trial, I found myself sitting on the tailgate of my old Dodge, sipping coffee, watching the sun rise over the ridgeline. The scars from the fire were still visible blackened stumps, stretches of earth where grass had yet to grow back but life had returned. Coyotes howled again at night. Birds nested in the new fences. Calves ran through the fields like nothing had ever burned. But the community had changed most of all. Without the HOA's iron grip, Sycamore Ridge didn't collapse like some worn-out it blossomed. Neighbors finally had freedom to plant what they wanted. The Joneses installed a raised vegetable bed in their front yard and gave out tomatoes like candy. The elderly couple across the way put up solar panels and hosted a DIY seminar to help others do the same. Kids biked freely again, chalking up the sidewalks with doodles and hopscotch grids. And the greatest surprise? The new community board formed voluntarily, without dues or forced compliance, invited me to be an honorary advisor. I said yes, not because I wanted authority, but because I knew what unchecked authority could become. We met monthly in the community barn, not a sterile boardroom. And every decision started with the same question. Is this serving people, or just controlling them? Meanwhile, the Landkeepers Coalition, the advocacy group born from the fire and fallout, had gained momentum. What started as a few farmers and ranchers comparing horror stories turned into a state-recognized nonprofit. We offered legal templates, consulting, even partnered with civil rights lawyers to challenge abusive HOAs across the country. We were invited to speak on local news, then a national broadcast. In one segment, a journalist asked me, "What gave you the strength to fight back?" I didn't have to think. Because this land holds more than livestock or fences. It holds memory, sweat, generations of dignity. And when someone tries to bulldoze that for the sake of their ego, you don't back down. You dig in. The clip went viral. I received emails from New Mexico, Idaho, Florida. Ranchers, veterans, single moms. People who had lived under HOA regimes that fined them for painting doors the wrong shade or for keeping chickens that fed their families. Some cried. Some raged. Some finally felt heard. And I realized, this fight was never just mine. It was ours. One chilly February evening, I got a visit I didn't expect. A woman in a dark coat stood by the gate, hesitating before walking up. I recognized her instantly, though her face was softer now, weathered by something more than time. "Linda," I said. She nodded. "May I?" I stepped aside. She looked around the ranch quietly, taking in the rebuilt fences, the grazing cattle, the wind chimes made of horseshoes someone had donated. "I was hoping it would all fall apart after the fire," she admitted. "But it didn't." "No," I said. "It didn't." She swallowed. I didn't just lose the HOA, I lost everything. Friends, clients, my reputation. My daughter won't speak to me. I said nothing. She looked at me with trembling eyes. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. Thought about what she had done, what she tried to destroy, but also about what came after. "No," I said slowly, "but I'll never forget it." She nodded. That seemed fair. Before leaving, she turned to me one last time. "I read about the Landkeepers. What you're doing gets good. Just don't become what I did." "I won't," I promised. And I meant it, because I'd learned the difference between defending a community and dominating it. Later that spring, we held a community ceremony at the ridge-right where the fire had started. Dozens came. Kids, elders, former HOA loyalists, new homeowners who only knew the after. We planted trees. One for every year the ranch had stood. One for every lesson learned. One for every voice that had once been silenced. And beside them we placed a stone marker. Not grand, just enough to remember. It read, "Where fire tried to divide, roots now hold us together." Some cried. Others just stood in silence. I stepped back and watched the wind roll across the hills. And I knew, deep down, that this land, our land, had been saved not just by proof or paperwork, but by the will to stand. Have you ever witnessed someone misuse their power, then face the full weight of what they tried to bury? Do you believe people like Linda can change, or are some lessons only learned through ruin? Tell us your thoughts, because sometimes What you survive isn't just fire, it's the silence that follows. And the choice to speak again. 3 years after the fire, I stood at the edge of the state capitol steps in Austin, Texas, adjusting my collar as a light breeze moved through the plaza. I never imagined myself here, boots on marble, speaking into microphones. TV cameras pointed at me like I was someone who mattered beyond county lines. But here I was. The state legislature was preparing to vote on the Landowners Protection Act, a bill born from the ashes of my ranch, my fight with Linda, and the dozens, now hundreds, soft stories like it that had surfaced through the Landkeepers Coalition. The act would place legal limits on HOA powers in agricultural-adjacent regions, require transparency in enforcement, protect historical family operations from nuisance fines and encroachment. It was sweeping, controversial, and very, very real. I wasn't a politician, but I knew how to speak plainly. So I did. I told them about my grandfather digging wells by hand, about my father building fences during droughts, about Linda Perriman lighting a match, thinking she was burning a problem, when she was igniting a movement. I'm not asking you to choose between neighborhoods and ranches, I said. I'm asking you to recognize that sometimes, the people making the rules don't represent the people living under them. We deserve a voice. And a future. When I finished, there was silence. And then applause. From both sides. The bill passed the committee stage unanimously. The vote went to the House 2 weeks later. And it passed. Back home, the ranch was more alive than ever. Our beef had earned a sustainably sourced certification. We hosted monthly field days for schools, offering hands-on lessons about soil health, irrigation, livestock welfare. Leah, now in her final year of college, came back every summer to help run the youth programs. She had even pitched a docuseries based on the Landkeepers. A big network was considering it. One of my proudest moments was seeing her standing in the same barn where Linda once spat HOA jargon at me, now filming a segment titled, "Power Doesn't Grow from Fences but from Roots." But I wasn't done yet, because there was one more step. I took a trip north, 6 hours through winding back roads and empty pastoresto, a county few remembered anymore. That's where I found it. A tiny, faded homestead on the edge of what used to be open range. A rusted windmill turned lazily in the breeze. And beside it, a small plot marked by a weathered cross. Frank's grave. Yes, that Frank. The veteran Linda had bullied out of his home. The first man her power had crushed long before it reached my ranch. His sister had kept in touch with me ever since I visited her house that day. She told me no one ever came to visit his grave. I brought wildflowers, laid them down carefully. Then I sat. For a long time. "People forgot you," I said out loud, the wind answering softly through the brush. But not anymore. I pulled something from my coat pocket. A small plaque, bronze, paid for by donations from the Landkeepers Network. I drove it into the ground with a mallet. It read, "In memory of Frank D. Whitmore, a man who deserved peace. May his story protect others." Back at the ranch, our own stories continued. Sycamore Ridge had officially dissolved the HOA in its place. A volunteer community group called Roots and Ridge took over. Their first resolution? A neighborhood grant to install fire breaks and emergency water tanks near shared zones. They invited me to the dedication. Linda didn't attend, but her daughter did. She pulled me aside after the ceremony. "She's in counseling now," she said, trying. "I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her, but I think she's starting to understand that order means nothing without empathy." I nodded. "She ever talk about the fire?" "Sometimes, mostly in dreams." I looked over at the new tank. It gleamed in the sun, a symbol of prevention born from destruction. "She may never fix what she broke," I said, "but maybe this next generation can build what she couldn't." Her daughter smiled, then left with her son Frank, named after the man they never met, but whose story had saved their own. Now and then, I still walk the property at sunset. I pass the line where the fire stopped, the fences that stand stronger now, the trees we planted during the ceremony. And always I pause at the sign. "This land stands because we stood." I touch the wood, faded now but still proud, just like the people who live beyond it. I don't know how many more years I'll work this land, but I know this, it will outlive me, because it's no longer just soil and timber and cattle. It's legacy, it's justice, it's proof that no matter how hard someone tries to scorch your roots, you can always rise.